What's up everyone, it's Chris Will and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the world of SAP Basis, but more specifically how to absolutely crush your next SAP Basis interview. Listen, I get it, interviews can be nerve-wracking. You're sitting across from someone who basically holds the keys to your dream job and the pressure is on. But here's the thing. When you walk into that room prepared, knowing exactly what to expect and how to answer the toughest questions, that's when your confidence skyrockets. And let's be honest, confidence is key in any interview. So whether you're a seasoned pro looking to level up or just starting out in the exciting world of SAP, this video is your secret weapon to acing that interview and landing that job. All right, so let's break down this whole SAP Basis thing. Imagine a massive skyscraper. Right? Well, SAP Basis is like the foundation, the concrete, the steel beams. It's what holds everything together. It's the technical backbone of any SAP system. We're talking system administration, database management, user management, security, performance tuning, you name it. Without a strong basis, the whole system crumbles. Think of a basis administrator as the superhero behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly, efficiently, and securely. They're the unsung heroes of the SAP world. Now, interviewers love to throw this question out there to test your basic understanding. They want to see if you can explain complex technical concepts in a clear and concise way. So when you answer this question, don't just rattle off a textbook definition. Connect it to real-world scenarios. Talk about why it's important for businesses to have a solid basis foundation. Show them you understand the bigger picture. Okay, so you know SAP Basis is the backbone, but what does a basis administrator actually do all day? Well, let me tell you, they wear a lot of hats. First off, they're the installation and configuration gurus. They're the ones setting up new SAP systems, making sure everything is configured correctly and that all the different pieces of the puzzle are talking to each other. Then you've got user management. They're responsible for creating and managing user accounts, assigning roles and permissions, and basically making sure the right people have access to the right information. And of course, we can't forget about performance. Basis administrators are constantly monitoring the system, identifying bottlenecks and fine-tuning performance to make sure everything is running as fast and efficiently as possible. They're also responsible for backups, disaster recovery, applying patches, handling transports. The list goes on and on. It's a demanding job, but incredibly rewarding. All right, let's talk about clients in SAP. Think of a client as a self-contained universe within the SAP world. It's like a separate business entity with its own set of data, configurations, and transactions. This is super important because it allows companies to run multiple business operations, departments, or even different companies entirely, all within the same SAP system. For example, you could have one client for your finance department, another for your sales team, and yet another for your human resources department, all neatly organized and separated within the same system. Now, when an interviewer asks you about clients, they're not just testing your knowledge of terminology. They want to see if you understand how SAP is used in the real world to manage complex business processes. So be prepared to give examples and show that you understand the practical implications of clients in an SAP environment. Chapter 4. What is a transport request or TR in SAP? All right, let's talk about transport requests or TRs for short. Imagine you're working on a brand new feature for your company's SAP system. You've spent days, maybe even weeks, coding, configuring, and testing everything to make sure it's perfect. Now you need to move this masterpiece from your development environment to the testing environment and eventually to the live production system where it can work its magic for the entire company. That's where transport requests come in. Think of a TR as a secure package that contains all the changes you've made, your code, your configurations, everything. You create this package and then the SAP Transport Management System takes over, moving it through the different stages of your system landscape, from development to testing to production. It's like a carefully orchestrated relay race, ensuring that your changes are moved safely and securely without disrupting the live system. Chapter 5. What is the difference between a workbench request and a customizing request? Okay, so we know that transport requests are used to move changes between SAP systems. But here's the thing, there are actually different types of TRs for different types of changes. Two of the most common ones you'll encounter are workbench requests and customizing requests. Now, a workbench request is like the techies playground. This is where you store all your technical changes, things like ABAP code, interface definitions, and other development objects. The key thing to remember here is that changes made in a workbench request typically affect all clients in your SAP system. On the other hand, a customizing request is all about configuring the system to meet your specific business needs. This is where you'd make changes to things like master data, system settings, and business process configurations. And unlike workbench requests, changes made in a customizing request usually only affect the client where the changes were made. Chapter 6. What is a system landscape in SAP? Now let's zoom out for a second and talk about the bigger picture, the SAP system landscape. Imagine this. You're a large company with hundreds or even thousands of employees using SAP every single day. You can't just have one giant SAP system and expect it to handle everything without breaking a sweat. That's where the concept of a system landscape comes in. It's basically a way to distribute your SAP system across multiple servers, each with its own specific role to play. Typically, you'll have at least 3 systems in your landscape: development, quality assurance, and production. Development is where the magic happens. It's where developers like you and me build and test new features and functionalities. Once we're happy with our changes, we package them up in those transport requests we talked about and move them to the quality assurance system. All right, let's dive into the heart of the SAP system, the kernel. Think of the kernel as the engine that drives the entire SAP machine. It's the core, the heart, the central nervous system that connects all the different parts and makes them work together seamlessly. Technically speaking, the kernel is a set of executable files that contain the most essential functions of the SAP system. It's responsible for things like memory management, process management, communication between different components, and basically everything that makes SAP tick. Now here's why the kernel is so important. It sits between the SAP application layer, that's where all the business logic and functionality resides, and the underlying operating system and hardware. So it acts as a translator, allowing the SAP applications to run smoothly on different operating systems and hardware platforms without any hiccups. Okay, let's talk about keeping your SAP system healthy and up to date. Just like any software, SAP requires regular maintenance and updates to fix bugs, improve performance, and introduce new features. That's where support packages, patches, and kernel updates come in. Think of them as vitamins for your SAP system. First up, we have support packages. These are like major updates that bundle together a bunch of fixes and improvements. They're usually released on a quarterly basis and address a wide range of issues. Then we have patches. These are more targeted fixes that address specific problems or vulnerabilities. They're like smaller, more frequent doses of medicine for your SAP system. And finally, we have kernel updates. These are updates to the core SAP kernel, which we talked about earlier. They're usually released more frequently than support packages and patches, and are essential for keeping your system running smoothly and securely. All right, let's talk about how SAP handles all the work that's thrown at it. Behind the scenes, SAP uses different types of work processes to manage all the tasks and requests coming from users and other systems. Two of the most common types of work processes you'll encounter are dialogue work processes and background work processes. Now, dialogue work processes are like the customer service representatives of the SAP world. They handle all the requests that come directly from users. Things like logging in, navigating through menus, entering data, and running reports. They're all about providing a smooth and responsive experience for the user. On the other hand, background work processes are like the behind-the-scenes heroes. They handle all the tasks that don't require direct user interaction, things like printing reports, sending emails, processing batch jobs, and performing system maintenance tasks. Chapter 10. Remember those transport requests we talked about earlier? The ones that package up your changes and move them between SAP systems? Well, the unsung hero behind that entire process is the transport management system, or TMS for short. Think of TMS as the logistics company of the SAP world. It's responsible for managing the entire life cycle of a transport request, from creation to testing to deployment in the production system. It ensures that all your changes are moved safely, securely, and in the correct order without disrupting your live system. Now, here's why TMS is so important. It provides a centralized control center for managing all your transports. You can track the status of your transports, manage dependencies between different transports, and even automate the transport process to save time and reduce errors. Chapter 11. Okay, let's talk about the foundation that allows all these different SAP applications to work together seamlessly. SAP NetWeaver. Think of NetWeaver as the glue that holds the entire SAP ecosystem together. It's a comprehensive technology platform that provides a common set of services for all SAP applications, enabling them to run on different databases, operating systems, and hardware platforms. It's like the universal translator of the SAP world. Now, NetWeaver is made up of several key components, including the SAP Web Application Server, which is responsible for running your SAP applications and handling user requests. The SAP Enterprise Portal, which provides a single point of access to all your SAP and non-SAP applications. The SAP Process Integration Platform, which allows you to connect different SAP and non-SAP systems to automate business processes, and a whole lot more. Chapter 12. All right, let's break down the different types of instances you'll encounter in the SAP world. Think of an instance as a unique environment where SAP applications and processes run. It's like a separate container that holds all the necessary components for a specific SAP system or application. Now, there are three main types of SAP instances: the central instance, the dialog instance, and the database instance. The central instance is like the brain of your SAP system. It's responsible for managing the entire system landscape, coordinating communication between different instances, and ensuring everything runs smoothly. It's the control center of your SAP world. Then we have dialog instances. These are the workhorses of your SAP system. They handle user requests, process transactions, and basically do all the heavy lifting when it comes to running your SAP applications. They're the ones interacting directly with users. Okay, let's talk about two critical components of any SAP system: the application server and the message server. Think of the application server as the engine room of your SAP system. It's where all the action happens. It's where your SAP applications reside, where transactions are processed, and where users interact with the system. It's the powerhouse that drives your business processes. Now, the message server is like the traffic cop of your SAP system. It sits between the users and the application servers, directing traffic and ensuring that requests are routed to the appropriate server for processing. It's responsible for load balancing, ensuring that no single application server gets overloaded with requests. Okay, let's talk about printing in SAP. Because yes, even in today's digital world, printing is still a thing. And in the SAP world, printing is handled by a special process called the spool process. Think of the spool process as the middleman between your SAP applications and your printers. When you send a print request from an SAP application, it doesn't go directly to the printer. Instead, it's first sent to the spool process, which then formats the output, manages print queues, and eventually sends the print job to the appropriate printer. Now, here's why the spool process is so important. It acts as a buffer, preventing your SAP applications from getting bogged down with printing tasks. Imagine if every time you printed a document from SAP, your application froze until the printing was complete. That would be a productivity killer. All right, let's talk about how SAP squeezes every ounce of performance out of your system, specifically how it optimizes database access using something called a database buffer. Now, you know that SAP relies heavily on its database to store and retrieve data, but accessing data directly from the database every single time can be slow and inefficient. Think of it like going to the grocery store every time you need an ingredient for dinner. That's where the database buffer comes in. It's like a pantry in your SAP system that stores frequently accessed data from the database. So the next time your SAP application needs that data, it can retrieve it directly from the buffer instead of having to go all the way to the database. This reduces the load on your database server and speeds up data retrieval times, resulting in a snappier and more responsive SAP system. Okay, let's talk about how SAP systems communicate with each other and with external systems, because in today's interconnected world, no system is an island. And one of the key mechanisms for enabling this communication is the remote function call, or RFC for short. Think of RFC as a phone call between two SAP systems, or between an SAP system and an external system. It allows one system to trigger a specific function or process in another system, even if those systems are located in different parts of the world. Now, RFC is based on a client-server architecture. The system that initiates the communication is called the RFC client, and the system that receives the request and executes the function is called the RFC server. Okay, let's talk about SAP HANA, the revolutionary in-memory database that's changing the game for SAP and its customers. Now, traditional databases store data on hard disk drives, which are relatively slow and inefficient. It's like trying to find a specific book in a library that's spread across multiple floors and rooms. SAP HANA, on the other hand, stores data in RAM. That's your computer's main memory, which is significantly faster and more efficient. It's like having all those library books instantly accessible in your hands. This allows SAP HANA to process data at lightning speed, enabling real-time analytics, faster transaction processing, and a whole new level of business agility. Okay, let's get practical and talk about some of the most common SAP basis transactions you'll be using on a daily basis. These are like the tools of the trade for any basis administrator. First up, we have SM37. This transaction is your go-to for managing background jobs. You can use it to schedule jobs, monitor their progress, analyze job logs, and troubleshoot any issues. Then we have ST22. This transaction is your best friend when it comes to analyzing system errors. It provides detailed information about runtime errors, including the call stack, variable values, and other helpful debugging information. Next, we have SM50. This transaction gives you a real-time view of all the work processes running on your SAP system. You can use it to monitor system load, identify bottlenecks, and even terminate processes if necessary. Alright, let's talk about how SAP ensures that your system can handle even the heaviest workloads without breaking a sweat. Specifically, how it distributes user requests across multiple servers using a technique called load balancing. Now imagine you have hundreds or even thousands of users accessing your SAP system simultaneously. If all those requests were directed to a single server, it would quickly become overwhelmed and your system performance would plummet. That's where load balancing comes in. It's like having a team of skilled receptionists answering phone calls and distributing them to the appropriate departments. In the SAP world, the message server acts as the load balancer. It receives all incoming requests from users and distributes them evenly across multiple application servers, ensuring that no single server gets overloaded. Alright, let's talk about how SAP helps you stay ahead of potential problems and keep your system running smoothly, specifically how it provides proactive monitoring and early warning signs through a service called Early Watch Alert. Now, imagine having a team of expert mechanics constantly monitoring your car's engine, looking for any signs of wear and tear, and alerting you before a minor issue turns into a major breakdown. That's essentially what Early Watch Alert does for your SAP system. It's a remote monitoring service that collects performance data from your SAP system, analyzes it for potential issues, and generates alerts and recommendations for proactive maintenance. It's like having a crystal ball that gives you a glimpse into the future health of your SAP system. And there you have it, 20 of the most common SAP basis interview questions, answered in detail to help you ace that interview and land your dream job. Remember, confidence is key. The more you know, the more confident you'll be. So study up, practice your answers, and go into that interview ready to impress. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more awesome SAP content. And as always, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends who are also on their SAP journey. Good luck with your interviews, and I'll see you in the next video.